Today, I will recap the anime name. Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun Season 3. The story begins with summer vacation that has ended, and Iruma with Asmodeus Clara go to school as usual. But they were greeted with great fanfare by all the students there because Iruma and Abnormal Students had previously defeated the giant demon at the water park. Because of that, they became famous and considered the heroes of the Underworld. Especially the main star is Iruma because he is the one who defeats the strongest monster with one strike. On the other hand, Ameri hopes to meet Iruma in person and wants their relationship to be more romantic, like the romance manga her reading. But Iruma is busy preparing himself for new semester learning. After that, they headed to class. Because Lead accidentally made fun of Kalego, he was punished by being hanged. Then Kalego explained that there would be a harvest festival and music festival. Of course, there are exams at the festival to raise the ranks of students. Not only that, Kalego conveyed the absolute order from the higher-ups there. All abnormal students must advance to rank 4 or Daleth before advancing to Class 2. Otherwise, they will be expelled from the Class Royal 1. But they will be specially trained by the best teachers in the demon world to rise to the Daleth rank and become the school's most powerful disciple. Then a great hero of the demon world named Sergeant Furfur will train Jazz with Alasar. They will be trained to become invincible and intelligent, cunning devils. So they were taken to an adult bar to practice their skills. The teacher named Wapar will train Goemon and Agares, so their power will become stronger by being taught in the water prison until they can destroy it. A teacher named Rain will train Clara with Elisabetta to become the most seductive and sexiest. Of course, Elisabetta will excel because she has a beautiful body and the full love gauge's ability to lure enemies with her scent. Mr. Hat will train Karori with Kamui to use demon monster summoning magic. The first training was to lock them up with the demon beasts to establish good relations with them. Meanwhile, Balam Sensei will train Sabnok with Asmodeus to become the strongest fighting student, because Balam saw the potential of the two of them when they fought the Red Dragon. As a result, they were trained to always fight with it and could not go home if they couldn't beat it. Meanwhile, Iruma and Lead will be trained to increase their spirit by Robin Sensei. Of course, they feel uneasy because Robin's nature is very strange. But in reality, the one who will train them is Robin's older sister, Bachiko. It turns out that Iruma's grandfather asked Bachiko to teach Iruma, but Bachiko enslaved them at will and forgot about the training instead. They were even asked to serve Bachiko by cosplay as a woman. Then Bachiko asked the two to prepare food, but they had to fight the Earth Dragon first to get the strawberries on his head. Fortunately, they managed to get it and returned safely, but their struggle was meaningless because Bachiko instead ate meat. The next day, they continue to be enslaved by Bachiko to the point that Lead becomes angry because he can't take it anymore, and decided to accept guidance from Robin instead of being a maid. Meanwhile, Iruma stays with Bachiko because he feels that Bachiko is training them that way, even though Bachiko has forgotten about the practice. Knowing that Iruma still obeys her orders, Bachiko considers Iruma the most stupid person. After hearing that, Iruma became mentally disturbed until he was speechless. Even when returning home, he was silent and annoyed with Bachiko. Then Iruma contacted Asmodeus at night, and he still practices late into the night, even still eager to get stronger. At the same time, Clara and Elisabetta also chatted with Raim Sensei. Seeing his two friends trying so hard revived his enthusiasm to serve Bachiko. After 2 weeks of special training, they were all exhausted and wanted to die. Seeing their suffering, of course, Kalego felt very happy. Then they told each other about their respective horrible training. Goemon and Agares were always being tortured in the water prison. Meanwhile, Lead plays non-stop games with Robin to increase focus. Sabnok and Asmodeus were always beaten to a pulp by Balaam. They never even came home for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Jazz and Elosser never returned to school because they were trained by Sergeant Furfur elsewhere. Clara and Elisabetta always posed seductively to increase their attractiveness. At the same time, Kirori and Kamui were locked up with demon monsters all day. Then they were all asked to go to the training ground. And even though they felt reluctant, they still accepted it to survive in the Royal 1 class. On the other hand, Sullivan meets Bachiko. Bachiko immediately blushes when she is with Sullivan. Sullivan asked him to train Iruma to master the Barbatos family's power, 100 shots on target. It turned out to be the evolution of Robin's power, which can only be done once a day. In contrast, Bachiko can shoot non-stop as long as he is focused. Bachiko explained that this power is not easy to master because from all over the demon world, only Bachiko and the great leader Barbatos can use this power. Knowing that, Iruma became excited and amazed by her, so she made weapons for Iruma in the Magic Equipment Club. On the other hand, the teachers were shocked when they found out that the mentors were very strong demon. It turned out that Kalego had purposely chosen strong mentors to torment the students, but they would get stronger quickly. Then Iruma and Bachiko enter the Magic Equipment Club, and it turns out that there are seniors who are members of the club. He had collected various objects there, which made it easier for Bachiko to select the bow core. Bachiko uses magic to turn a tree root into a bow. She explains that an ordinary demon needs a core to create a bow, and even his material core would resemble the bow as well as the wish of its user. Knowing that, the senior tried it and created the Ameri bow statue. Then Iruma chose the monster fur in Season 1 as the core of his bow. Even though he managed to turn it into a bow, Bachiko broke it instead because Bachiko wants Iruma to make a unique bow, which is his true self. Bachiko only gave Iruma one chance because there were no second chances on the battlefield. It turns out that the Harvest Festival is a battlefield or survival test, so Bachiko educates Iruma firmly so he can pass the exam.
チャンスはあと1回だ。戦場に。もう1回はね。弓使いになりたきゃここぞで決めなきゃダメなんだよ。
Then it shows Bachiko's past, where Bachiko always trained demons to become his students. Even though he managed to make a good bow, but he stopped. Since there were no more students that he could teach, Bachiko lost hope of finding the best student and a beautiful bow. On the other hand, Goemon and Agares succeeded in destroying the water prison with their power. Goemon managed to cut the water stream with the flow of wind blades, while Agares imagined the water as earth with the power of my area so that he could control it. You can be sure they passed the first stage of training. On the other hand, Kirori becomes an extraordinary figure, the queen of monsters, so the monsters obey her orders. At the same time, Kamui's abilities are increasing and are liked by various other animals. Not only that, Lead pretended to lose when playing games with Robin and immediately turned things around quickly at the last moment. As a result, the ability to focus increases. Even Sabnok and Asmodeus also managed to launch an attack on Balaam. On the other hand, Elisabetta turns out to be very seductive and charming, while Clara also has a hidden talent to conquer opponents with her arms. Then back to Iruma, who was having a hard time. A Likert tried to advise Iruma by imagining his desire embarrass him. So that the Overpower bow was created, which was covered in electricity and had wings on Iruma's body. Bachiko instantly became amazed at Iruma's greatness. After knowing that the abnormal disciple has hidden talent, the mentors train them even harder, to the point that they see hell in training. A few weeks later, the harvest festival will soon arrive. Of course, Iruma and the others had finished their training, and Bachiko warned Iruma that he could only use a bow twice. Bachiko recommends using it when the situation is right. Then the harvest festival will begin. The Class 1 students gather on a flying island with a giant forest. Then 2 teachers explained the exam procedure to the students, and they were asked to collect the total points from the food ingredients they got. The time limit is for 4 whole days. They can also cooperate with other students, even stealing and cheating other students. But they will be disqualified if there is physical violence. Then there are the strongest student candidates, namely 2 sticky brothers named Ichiro and Nero. They are Class 2 students but don't go to class because they always skip school to be on the battlefield. The number 2 student in various academic subjects and practical lessons is named Orobas. There is also a student with a lethal body odor at the Jimel rank named Nafura. Hearing that the abnormal class would be a potential winner, Ichiro and Orobas immediately felt challenged to beat them. It was only natural since the abnormal class had obtained various new historical achievements in the demon world. However, they were underestimated because they looked stupid, but they surprised the students upon their arrival. Because the abnormal class had completely changed to be stronger than before, when they were gathered together, they all argued about the sufferings of their respective practices. But that made them even more excited to show their best to rise to the Daleth ranking.
そちらは魔獣とサーカス？あら面白い。
どのチームが一番特訓して成長したのか、収穫祭の結果で勝負だ。
Before parting ways, Led suggested Iruma convey encouragement so they would be even more passionate about the festival.
足引っ張ったらぶっ飛ばすぞ！
Then Asmodeus, in the number 1 spot, quickly hunts all the monsters and collects food ingredients. Also, Asmodeus and Sabnok work together to fight boss-class monsters, which are worth 3,000 points more. They must collect at least 50,000 points each to win the festival. Because the previous champion, namely Ameri, collected 59,000 points to win. Not only that, there was a mysterious plant worth 100,000 points, but it was extremely rare and had never been obtained.
東の洞窟が一番だな。
When they were discussing, suddenly 2 sticky brothers came to meet them. Then they challenged Asmodeus with Sabnok. Whoever beats the boss-class monster will be the winner and get 1,200 points. The brothers' purpose is sticky. They want to prove they are the best students from a mentor there. So they want to compete with Asmodeus and Sabnok. On the other hand, in place number 2, Karori and Kamui controlled the place. The very charming figure of Karori can subdue all the animals there. Besides that, Kamui's abilities are good friends, and he can talk to animals, so making it easier for them to collect food ingredients. Even Karori scares the other students who want to steal by showing her ice powers and 2 overpower pets, namely Snow Fox with Storm Wolf. Also, Karori's charming figure made her very famous, so Karori felt happy because her training had not been in vain. On the other hand, in place number 3, the Allosaur is collecting food ingredients with other students. After successfully collecting the food ingredients, they will be handed over to a teacher to calculate the number of their points. Then, that student planned to trick the other students and cooperate with Allosaur. He wanted to keep the remaining 500 points to be their share. Allosaur also agreed with this and handed over the food ingredients, but without realizing it, he had been deceived by Allosaur, because the teacher who was there was Jazz in disguise.
俺もさ、運が優位だと思ってるやつほど騙されやすいな。
It was sure that the two of them had become cunning demons who relied on wits and tricked opponents to their advantage. Then shown the training, the two of them first had fun in an entertainment venue filled with adults. But unknowingly, they are being charged a heavy price for having fun there, and Sergeant Furfur is not responsible to them. As a result, they are forced to become workers in that place and feel the suffering when they have to work non-stop. But they understand the strategy of adult cunning demons, so they can guess someone's thoughts to manipulate and use opponents to their advantage, even hiding their evil aura as Sergeant Furfur did. But their training test had to guess where the coin was in Sergeant Furfur's hand. Unfortunately, they couldn't trick him because of the difference in their experiences. So that made them feel annoyed and want to re-challenge Sergeant Furfur after the Harvest Festival. On the other hand, in place number 4, many students intend to steal Iruma's points. But Iruma didn't care about that and ate all the food. Then back at the start of the Harvest Festival, when he feels the atmosphere of the forest, the survival version of Iruma begins to revive. Previously, when in the human world, Iruma had survived various obstacles, including staying in the forest. At the same time, he was sold by his bastard parents to the devil to get money, but instead, Iruma can live in luxury in hell to become Sullivan's grandson. Then the first step taken by Iruma was to adapt to the environment and divide food ingredients to be used as points and the rest to be eaten. While the others were serious about collecting points, Iruma and Led had fun there without feeling any fear. So the students who wanted to take Iruma's points felt stupid and decided to leave because Iruma had used up his points by eating them. Meanwhile, Lead is impressed with Iruma as a strategist. But as a precaution, Lead has hidden several points. Then suddenly, Clara came with a scary aura there. When they were off guard, Clara immediately took Iruma to another place. When Led is alone, Elisabetta seduces him to get Led points. Knowing this, Lead tried hard and held desperately from the temptation. However, Elisabetta opened Led's jacket and felt his whole body. In the end, Lead's points were successfully taken. Not only that, it turns out that Elisabetta didn't use her powers at all and only had the capital of temptation, so Lead felt a misunderstanding because Elisabetta wouldn't use her powers on the man she loved. Feeling loved, Led without hesitation and gave another point to Elisabetta, but Elisabetta liked all the boys in the abnormal class equally. Knowing that makes Lead heartbroken. When she was a child, she liked free love stories, and since then, she has been determined to want to be loved by all men and even considers all men to be princes. Thanks to that thought, Elisabetta could master all the seductive techniques taught by Rain. Even though Elisabetta had cheered him on, Led still had mixed feelings and sat there for a long time. On the other hand, Clara, who was with Iruma, suddenly pulled forcibly and brought Iruma into her costume. So Iruma was trapped in Clara's toy box and had to play with Clara as much as he wanted. Even though Iruma had doubts about it because they were at the Harvest Festival, but Iruma was tempted to play around there. As a result, the two of them had fun together and forgot about the Harvest Festival. It turns out that if they play too long, then their magic energy will be sucked up. But Iruma is human and his magic energy comes from Alikrid's ring. So Iruma remains excited while Clara becomes overwhelmed. Then Iruma said he felt happy playing with Clara. Even Clara felt the same way. After Iruma blushed at Clara's words, Elisabetta suddenly took them out of the toy box. It turns out that night has come and Iruma and Lead have yet to get any points. At the same time, the two of them had accumulated 5,400 points on the first day of the Harvest Festival. On the other hand, the teachers are very busy because they have to save the injured students from being attacked by monsters. Because of that, Kalego was forced to go down to the field to protect the students. And the seriously injured disciples would be treated and withdraw from the Harvest Festival. There is also a teacher named Aureus who has a lucky and happy ability. With that ability, he can find out the location of the students and save them quickly. But Orias insists that his luck cannot protect students from various dangers. On the other hand, a group of female students found a castle in the middle of the forest. When they entered the castle, they met Agares. Instantly, they were mesmerized by the handsome face of Agares and considered him the handsome man Endymion from the ancient myths of the demon world. When Goemon returned from his grocery hunt, he was surprised to see Agares being attacked by women. Then they explained that monsters had attacked them, so they wanted to shelter in the castle. But Agares refused this and tried to expel them from his castle. While Goemon asked them to stay, Agares was irritated by Goemon's nature, which was too kind to everyone. Previously, Goemon always picked up Agares to go to school, even always beside Agares. So that all made Agares annoyed and he scolded Goemon not to come to his house. But Goemon always stopped by Agares' house and didn't care about Agares' anger. So Agares ensured that Goemon couldn't manage the distance, even though he was a swordsman. Maybe because his sword is a blade of wind, so it doesn't need distance. After that, Goemon, who wanted to bring food for them, suddenly heard a terrible sound from outside. Agares also advised Goemon not to save them, but Goemon remained to save other people who needed help. In the end, Agares allowed Goemon to do as he pleased. After saving the students, Goemon brought them to live in the castle. So Agares got angry seeing many people enter his castle. On the other hand, the mentors gathered together for the party. Even Sullivan and Bachiko joined their party. Then Mr. Hat showed off Karori's prowess with Kamui, who had earned 14,200 points with the help of demonic animals. It turned out that Balam had previously done the same and won the Harvest Festival with 55,000 points. After that, Raim showed off the prowess of her student, who had earned 9,400 points by seducing the demons. Meanwhile, Wepar also shows the greatness of Agares with Goemon and has collected 8,200 points. Even Sergeant Furfur also did not want to lose and showed the prowess of his student. However, Sergeant Furfur thinks Iruma will fail because he still has 0 points.
0ポイント。あのチームはダメね。
ざけんなてめえ。うちのイルマダメんじゃねえぞ。
Hearing that made Bachiko feel annoyed and enlivened the atmosphere by having a party together. After that, they compared the prowess of their respective students. At the same time, the students slept peacefully to welcome tomorrow, except for these two teams fighting boss monsters to prove who's the strongest there. Previously, Asmodeus refused to challenge them, but because they called Asmodeus with Sabnok were weak demons. As a result, they compete to win the golden fruit worth 10,800 points. They have to slash it 100 times to get the fruit. In the middle of the fight, Nairo provokes them to commit violence to disqualify them from the Harvest Festival. It turns out that their family's strength is a button that can make the opponent's emotions go out of control. Even though Sabnok took the hit, Asmodeus managed to stop him. Because their abilities have been exposed, of course they feel upset. Then they told me that when they were little, they were asked to learn the art of negotiating on the black market. but they want to be heroes on the battlefield. So on the first day of school, they immediately head to the battlefield in the north. While they were battered there, they were saved by someone in a mask. Then they are trained to be the strongest in a battle to help with his work. He also considers the power of their buttons to be very strong because they can affect opponents in battle. From then on, they became in awe of that person. But one day, he is called to be an abnormal student mentor. It turns out he is Sergeant Furfur. You can be sure that Nairo and Ichiro have misunderstood because mentor team Asmodeus is Balam. Then they influence the demonic beasts to go out of control, even deliberately ridiculing that only weak devils went to school. As a result, Asmodeus thought they insulted Iruma, so Asmodeus was very angry and released the evil cycle. After releasing the evil cycle, Asmodeus easily defeated the monster, while they were afraid to see Asmodeus's very dangerous form. When Asmodeus wanted to kill them both, Sabnok immediately stopped him by saying the password. After hearing that, Asmodeus could return to normal as usual, so Team Asmodeus and Sabnok won the victory. The next day, on the second day of the Harvest Festival, Team Asmodeus was ranked first with a total of 15,100 points, while Team Iruma was ranked last with 0 points. Then the two Sticky brothers admitted defeat over the previous fight, while Asmodeus and Sabnok acknowledged their prowess. As a result, they are excited to compete again in defeating the boss monsters. On the other hand, Iruma and Led are preparing to get as many points as possible because their points are still 0. Knowing this, Iruma felt guilty for eating all the ingredients without anything left. However, there is still one way to win the festival, which is to get a legendary leaf worth 100,000 points. The lead wanted to find information from the demon beasts. Coincidentally, Kamui can talk to demon beasts, so they want to meet him. Then, Lead uses his controller powers to track Kamui's whereabouts through the sounds in the forest. Even though they managed to find it, they were surrounded by demon beasts. The demon beasts told Kamui about Iruma's goal of looking for the legendary leaf. Even Kamui was amazed by Lead's ability to trace his whereabouts from region number 4 to number 2. Then Queen Kerori will give information about the legendary leaf as long as they dance and sing like a demon idol.
そんなことできなくもないけど悪魔やるじゃない
Seeing that, Queen Kerori felt happy because she liked seeing demon idols. Iruma and Lead are happy because Bachiko's practice can be useful. After entertaining the audience, they get a song from a demon beast. In the song, there is a way to get the legendary leaf, and they must get the seed and plant pot to grow it. To find the location, they have to solve the puzzle of the song. On the other hand, the student council group led by Ameri is tasked with rescuing injured students at the Harvest Festival. But Ameri hopes to meet Iruma there. Ameri believes that Iruma will become a champion by getting the legendary leaf. Even Ameri imagined that Iruma brought the legendary leaf for her. However, suddenly there was a commotion in the audience tent. It turned out that a bet was being held to determine the winner of the Harvest Festival. Amari also wants to stop this by finding the mastermind behind the commotion, but it turns out that Jazz and Alakar are behind it. It was certain that one of them withdrew from the Harvest Festival due to the actions of someone known as the abnormal class hunter Orobas. But it will continue to the next video, so see you in the next video.